Oh, so typically the businesses you deal with, is there like what is your check-in point? Like, is there like a visible way I know this is a business I want based off the revenue they bring in, a profit margin like that, just so I can do a good job of looking out? Because it's some construction company, you're a construction company, but you probably ain't dealing on that level. I'm just trying to say, what are the easy ways to identify your client?
It's not, for me, it's not necessarily how much money the company makes. I have some clients that are, they're large companies, but they may only bring in 2 to 3 people a year. And so that's fine with me. I have smaller companies that may bring in 10 to 12 people a year, and that's fine as well. I would say listen for the angst when you're talking to someone or you're hustling, not that any of us are hustling. But if someone says, I have this employee, I'm not quite sure if they're a U.S. citizen, I have this employee, I'm not quite sure the documents they gave me were accurate, or straight up someone came to me and they've said they had a problem, and they've said to me, I am just, all the documents I've handed you for the past 3 years are wrong. Send them to me. That company has liability that they absolutely need and should want to know about. And then we can talk about it. For me, it doesn't matter the size.
Wow. Cool.
Do you work with individuals and companies, meaning like if there's someone who has moved over and they're like on a contract basis, like you would work with them as well too to get?
Yes.
Okay.
I do work with individuals and I work with companies.
Okay.
I have a conflicts check in place, so I have to make sure that I'm not representing the company and the employee under certain circumstances, and if I am, both need to sign off on that representation. Now there are some, when I help a company bring in and hire an employee, typically my client will be the employer, but there have been situations where an employee has found me and then gone to the company and said, I found my own attorney, can I use her? And then I sit down with both parties and have a very serious discussion, because if there later becomes a question as to who I represent, that needs to be hammered out in the very beginning of the representation, and that is clearly defined in my engagement agreement, so that all parties are signed and we're all aware.
What are some of the penalties if you don't heed to the things that you're saying for a company? Is it time?
Sometimes it depends on the type of visa category that you are working with. So if you're working with certain visa categories, you can be barred from using that visa category for X number of years after the investigation is over and done with. Sometimes the penalties are monetary penalties when we're talking about the I-9s and knowingly hiring individuals that you know are not authorized to work. In addition to the monetary penalties, you can be slapped with a suit for harboring illegal aliens, and you can go to jail. So using the excuse of, oh, I didn't know, just doesn't work today.
Nothing major.
Yeah, you can absolutely be fined and or sent to jail. Or some of the penalties are simply monetary. It really just depends on what the offense is, how many times you've done it, whether or not they think you've done it knowingly, and that's where nobody likes to go through an audit by themselves. Audits can quickly spiral out of control.
So have you noticed an increase, like with these elections, a lot of people are talking about immigration and whatnot, have you noticed an increase in your business since all of this has been going on?
Not really. Business has been pretty steady, which is nice.
Okay.
Immigration, if it is something that is important to you, and by that I mean you are an immigrant, or you are looking to hire foreign nationals, or you routinely hire foreign nationals, it's something that's not new, and it's something that is always on your mind. So I always get questions about it. My questions don't sort of ebb and flow based on the politics of it all. I may get more questions if it seems as though a certain bill is about to pass in Congress, but I'm still, I still got business and that, so that's pretty steady. So it's the type of thing where I may not know necessarily what's going on in your industry, but you and all of your colleagues absolutely know, and you keep on top of it. So that's kind of the same with me. So it doesn't really have to do with politics.
As an IT recruiter, I have good candidates, good talent who are from India and other foreign countries.
Okay.
But my problem I always have is trying to skill market them to companies. A lot of companies don't want to pay So I guess, is it best for me to say, go to you, my candidates come to you to help them get the sponsorship, the visas, or so forth, or to try to skill market the company, and so I know an attorney can help with that integration?
I think either. I think the issue is really with the company. I think the company is unsure of exactly what the process is.
Right.
They are unsure of how long the process will take, and they're unsure of how much money it will take them to get essentially this person in a seat and working. And can they, using the immigration system, get this person on board on time? Because for recruiters, there's always a timing aspect of it. So a lot of it is, when I talk to companies in that situation, a lot of it is about education. And so once I talk to them, and then at least they have a firm understanding of what needs to happen. And one of the things I tell them is it's not always going to be the same for each individual. So linkages to those folks would be helpful for them, just so that I can explain to them what they need to do and what the process is, and then that helps them plan sometimes a little bit further out. Especially if the company feels like they've lost a couple of really good candidates because they're too afraid or they're just unsure of what needs to happen. At least then they'll understand and they'll be able to build that into their recruiting timeline.
Yeah, that would help, because I always get the answer where it costs too much to
Right.
onboard, and
Right.
I don't know, so now I have a reference or a resource to go to.
Sure.
And let me ask you a couple of questions real quick.
Okay.
The immigration calls that I get mainly refer are from people who've committed crimes, who are here maybe on a visa, or, and forgive me, I don't know really the difference between green card, visa, that type of thing.
Sure.
But they're here, they're working, or they're in school and they got in trouble and they're concerned about what's gonna happen to them, once they go to court. And I always say you need to consult with the immigration attorney.
Absolutely.
Would you be a person who could provide
Yes.
them a consultation on that? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Because there are immigration ramifications when you talk about one crime that may be a misdemeanor
Right.
in state court could be considered an aggravated felony over on the immigration side of the house, which will have huge ramifications on what they should be doing and what they can be doing. So I didn't actually talk about it today, but I do work with criminal attorneys on that very issue to try and help them get deals on the criminal side that will help on the immigration side.
Right.
And sometimes there's just nothing that we can do.
Right. And so with that being said, what is just a quick difference between a visa and a green card?
Okay, so a visa, think of the US as a house.
Okay.
The Department of State runs all of the consulates. You go to the consulate, you get a visa, it's stamped in your passport. It'll be for a specific type of visa, whether you're coming into work, one of the 22 that I talked about earlier, or whether you're coming to visit, or whatever you're coming for, it'll be stamped in your passport. So the visa allows you to physically get on the plane.
Okay.
Then you come to the airport. Think of the airport as the door to the house. You knock on the door, the visa allows you to knock on the door. The immigration officer stamps you in your passport and says, okay, you are now allowed to enter the US in whatever status it is. Let's say you're coming here as a visitor, so you enter as a visitor, then you're given a stamp in your passport, and you used to be given a little white card in your passport, which is electronic now, but you get that white card. That white card tells me what your status is. So your visa is something that's in your passport. Your status is what they essentially stamp in your passport once you've entered.
Okay.
Now that allows you to stay for a certain amount of time that will be stamped on that card and in your passport. The green card is a totally separate process that allows you to stay indefinitely. So the green card it's about the size of a credit card, and it's plastic, and it's got all your biographic information
So the
on it.
people that are trying to stay here, that's what they're pursuing.
The people that are trying to
pursuing-
stay here indefinitely are pursuing a green card.
Okay.
A temporary work authorization, some people will refer to that as a visa.
Right.
That's temporary. So
Okay.
that may allow them to stay for 60 days, 90 days, 5 years, 7 years, 6 years. It just depends on what category they have applied for and been approved for and
Okay.
entered into.
Okay.
Last question. So my sister, she lives in China, and her company, all she does is help people from the U.S. get jobs there.
Okay.
Do you do any type of work like that, or you just strictly work with other companies coming in?
I work with individuals coming into the U.S.
Okay, cool.
So if there's someone who needs to go outside of the U.S., I refer that work out.
Okay, cool.